All right, welcome everyone. I think we're on the LPPA channel. We're also on Pink Flame of Liberty. And I hope Adrian Malagon's listening, because I decided I'm going to spend the first few minutes gossiping about him when he can't do anything about it. He's probably watching this now, drinking and spitting out his bourbon, which the image of that is just making me smile.
I like it.
I like it a lot. If you know Adrian, he can be quite special. A lot of you don't know my background. I come from a theological background. I used to run a podcast. And those of you who've done voice things before you did video things, I was watching this video of a lady who used to be the pre-recorded voice of something. It was like, and if you want an operator, press 1. And everyone was just ready to murder her because they recognized that voice. Well, I used to have this closing on my podcast that everyone knew that used to say, this podcast was made on a Macintosh, as if I'd use anything else. And everyone used to recognize that. But the story about Adrian, what a lot of people don't know, considering how spicy he can be on the LNC, is that he studied to be a priest. So now whenever you see Adrian, call him Father Malagon.
It's got a nice ring.
It has a very nice ring, and we've had some pretty deep theological discussions. So I don't know why I wanted to start that way, but I figured I would. So welcome, everyone, and if you would introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Autumn Pangia. I'm from Monroe County, Pennsylvania. I only got active in the Libertarian Party on an official level. I was registered Libertarian for a real long time, but 2022 was when I came here, and it's been a heck of a ride for the last couple of years.
And I'm Brittany Cozen, and I'm from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And about the same time with Autumn getting involved in 2022 when I started my state rep race in the 178th. So kind of been just hit the ground running and getting involved every year more and more.
And what I am doing is on my stream, because right now it just says restream, which probably isn't that interesting. Yeah, go ahead. All right, and let me just hit that because I'd like to see if we have any comments. I'm going to hit my live stream so I can. Oh, wow, check us out. Yay, now we're just going to be all vain here looking at ourselves.
That's okay, it's stop. Yes.
All right, so this is, again, a special episode. I kind of wing things. I would like to know what anyone in the audience might want us to address. I'm certainly willing to address nearly anything about myself. It's getting late, so I don't know, some weird things can end up coming out of my mouth, or questions to the... How do we get more women in the party? I actually, and I would love to hear your answers. I do a whole talk on this that a lot of people don't expect from me. I've done a talk in Kansas that had grown men crying, and I'm not kidding. And also in Florida, where I had one of our presidential candidates, Rec, come up to me and said, you really touched me with your talk. I'm going to give you a real short summary of it, and then I'll let you guys talk. And the short summary of it, let me ask, I'm going to do the audience participation here like I do somewhere. And please don't overthink this. When you first became a libertarian and you started talking to your friends, what's the very first objection that you heard to libertarianism? It's universal. You're overthinking it. But who will build the roads? And it made me wonder. That question right there tells you why we don't have more women in the party. And I know you might be going, I don't see the connection here. We don't have some peculiar American road fetish. You know, we don't all go home and like have, you know, the centerfold of the road and have some private sexy time with roads. Everyone isn't concerned about the roads. And we answer people like they really are asking about the roads. And we go, oh, you dumbass, the same people who built them before. That's who's going to, that's not what people are asking. When people ask, but who will build the roads, what they're really asking is, but who will keep grandma from starving? And then it's even deeper, but why would anyone keep grandma from starving? And because we don't really ever answer that question, that's why we don't have more women in the party. Because of all people, men sometimes don't understand how vulnerable women feel. And that question is about who will take care of the vulnerable people in society. So why don't we have more minorities? Why don't we have more women? It's because sometimes people don't really even know what they're asking when they ask us a question, and get behind their felt needs. Because I can tell you, they think libertarianism is survival of the fittest. I'm not the fittest. And most women don't think they're the fittest, particularly women with young children. And until we start addressing the issue of how the vulnerable in society will be addressed, and stop asking when people acting like when people are asking about roads that they really do care about the roads, because no one really does. That's why we don't. So I know it's a weird step going from roads to why we don't have more women in the party, but I actually think that's why. So I'm going to go to you next. Why do you think so?
I'll tell you, I'm really glad that I didn't put too much effort into coming up with my own idea, because I really feel enriched by what you said. And I never said I feel enriched by what somebody said out loud before. It feels weird, but it's true. It's true. It's exactly what I meant. I wouldn't have said it otherwise. Ask anybody. They'll all agree. That's my Trump impression. So the reason I'm glad I listened is because you're 100% right. And what the switch that flipped towards the end for me, of realizing why what you said was so far off, is because of what I think I recognize in myself, and what I bet a lot of women who are involved here recognize in themselves. How many of you feel like a freaking badass with a very defiant side who's not going to admit that you might not be the stronger of the sexes? Right? Did anybody want to raise their hand? Because, like, I don't know. I might be right, but I might not be. And that's kind of my disposition, which is perhaps why I'm a little more accepting of that perspective about the merits of taking responsibility for yourself and being vulnerable to the pitfalls of libertarianism, in, you know, the ideal libertarian euphoria. So that could be like why I have a blind spot for exactly what you just described.
Yeah. It took me a while to realize that. I would encourage everyone to look up on my channel. I am going to pimp my channel. It is Pink Flame of Liberty. But there's a talk I do called The Humanitarian Responsibility of Freedom. And I would really, really recommend you listen to it, because something we forget as libertarians, we think if only we were free, everything would be perfect. But that's not true. Liberty is a necessary but not sufficient precondition for human flourishing. We have to recognize that libertarian Thunderdome is possible. In fact, I start out my talk on the humanitarian responsibility of freedom with, "Welcome to Thunderdome, bitches," because that's what people think we are saying. And Larry sometimes touches upon this. He really got me with his question about, are you against universal health care? Well, what kind of monster would you be? Like, of course we hear the force, but you know, the other people who don't agree with us don't see themselves as aggressors. They see themselves as good people. So I don't want to monopolize this. I'd love to hear your answer to this.
Honestly, I see it differently, as with, you feel like when getting more women involved, it's, well, where's your husband? Where's your boyfriend? Where's your fiance? Like, we don't have it that our opinions sometimes, or we just believe that our opinions don't mean, it's like you have to kind of be the badass, and not many people want to step up and do that anymore because they feel criticized. So we have to be, I think we have to be like more welcoming, and just kind of reinforcing that, no, your opinion matters just as much as anybody else next to you. And I think that's really, I think what got me into doing it and going and saying, I could care less what my husband says. And he knows it. I don't care.
And I think this is a really deep question, actually, when you get into it. I'm not an identity politics person, but I think we're stupid if we don't realize that identity does in fact matter, and that we do have to let people know that we're not advocating the complete abolition of any kind of structure or any kind of support system. And women are especially sensitive to that. And I think we need to start being more sensitive to that. And to your point, God bless my husband, because some of you guys, well, I'm difficult. I'm extremely difficult to live with. But some of you see the slings and arrows that I get online. As a man, some of you, I'm sure, can imagine how you would feel if it was your wife being talked to that way. And something I feel pretty strongly about, and when there's an activist couple, is that when I was elected, they didn't elect a package deal. They elected me. They did not elect me and my husband. So we have a rule. I fight my own battles. You see someone coming after me, do not jump in. If I can't handle myself, I shouldn't be in this position. But I see a lot in the movement where you end up getting a 2-for-1 deal, and I think we have to kind of be a little bit careful of that to be our own. But something that men need to realize is, God, and I know I'm probably going to offend people with this, and I don't really mean to, is this goes both ways.
Carrie Ann does not mean to offend.
Yeah, and like I care. I know I care so much. I know this goes both ways, but we are focusing on women on this. There is still inadvertent sexism. I can tell you something that was said to me that I don't believe was meant sexist. But it was a long time ago when I was in a tie vote. It was about 6 rounds in to be on platform committee. And my opponent had said, does Colorado get a platform committee appointment? And the answer was yes. And my husband happened to be state chair. And it was said, well, her husband will just appoint her. And I don't think they meant anything by it. But would they have said that if I was a man? I don't think they would have. So there's a little bit of that, but you want to know what? I think sometimes we as women have to turn around and wonder what kind of inadvertent expectations we are placing upon the men in the party that isn't exactly fair. But I'm sure we all have our stories, and we need to be sensitive to that without saying, oh, it's culture warrior stuff. Because obviously, you know, I can handle myself, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't model what is better behavior.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know that I agree with you on that one little point so much that they wouldn't have said it if it was your husband and they said his wife will just appoint him. That you feel they wouldn't have been as likely to say that. I mean, maybe, but I think it would have been just as nasty and offensive, and you know, especially the women being the meeker of the sex, the ones who are more likely to need to be cared for, were a little more, I think, susceptible to that feeling of people thinking we didn't earn what we got.
Oh my God, let me tell you a story. This is going to be story hour, I think. I think this is true confessions.
Kids, gather round. It's about to get weird.
I'm going to tell you something from a female perspective when it comes to the whole culture warrior thing or the cis white het male thing. I became Region 1 rep. Most people don't know. I've been on the LNC since 2016. Oh my God. It feels like yesterday, and it feels like the Victorian era. So, but anyway, I got on the LNC when I was only in the party for a year and a half. Most people don't know that's why I dyed my hair pink. It was a marketing ploy because I knew nobody knew my name, but they remember the pink-haired lady with the Liberty crown. If you're wondering how I ended up with pink hair and why I always wear the crown, is because people don't remember names, but they do pick up on things like that. And I wanted to win. I'm very, very competitive. And it turned out that my competitor in that race happened to be an older white gentleman. And I can tell you, and I get emotional on these sorts of things. Do I think I was the better person for the job? Absolutely. But do I think I won because I was the better person for the job? No. I think I won because I was a younger woman and they wanted more women, and this was an old white guy. And that does not feel good as a woman, to not believe that you got the job because you were the better person. So let's be careful of that too. Sometimes we make fun of these diversity quotas or whatever it might be, but I can tell you being on the other side of that doesn't feel good either. I can't imagine being a man and losing a job and knowing that you didn't get it because you were being judged because you were a white man. But I can tell you the other person on the other side of that equation doesn't feel good about it either. Because now I know I get what I earned, but my first job on the LNC, I'm not convinced that I got it because I was the best person for the job. I'm convinced I got it because I was a woman and my opponent was an older white man. And that feels like crap, honestly.
That's a really valuable point. I mean, what you're saying is that decisions based on identity hurt everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good on any side of the equation. It does not feel good to win that way. I want to win fair and square.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, I can't think off the top of my head because my brain's still half asleep.
She worked all night, guys. It's all right.
Think any time that I would had that, but definitely it's not good on either side, I would say. So we just have to be conscious of everyone with that. It's a big deal.
There are other women in the audience here as well, and I'm trying to keep an eye on comments, but I'm wondering if anyone out there, I think is this mic on too? I would love to know if any of the other ladies out there have any other answers on why they think we don't have more women in the liberty movement. And while we're waiting to see who's brave enough to raise their hand before I call upon them, because I will, I think we have more, though, than we pretend like we don't. If you look at the leadership of state parties, there's a lot of female state chairs. I'm going to give a plug for Hannah Goodman. She's running for LNC vice chair. She's the state chair of Colorado, and what a powerful woman. And there's no secret that I admire Angela very much. I work with her very, very closely behind the scenes. And while she might look like just this tiny little slip of a woman, let me tell you, she is a frickin' powerhouse. So before I call on somebody, I would suggest you raise your hand. I'd love to hear why the other women may have different perspectives, because women aren't monolithic. We don't all think the same. I'm looking right at you right now. No, not behind you. Right at you.
I would say in general, women are less politically motivated than men are. So you have to jump that hurdle before you jump any others. And then I think libertarian women are more likely to focus on things at home than they are on politics. So it's really about getting the message out on things that we're centered on and really getting them motivated on the things that we find important, you know. And I think doing that will get more women involved.
Can I kind of wrap off that a little bit? There's a big thing going on right now between like this new trad wife thing. And I actually think there's a felt need there that government has replaced the family, and this move, this trad wife move, isn't really a move that women don't want equality or they don't want a say. They want stability. They feel insecure. And I don't think we always offer that either.
Can I admit my ignorance? Can you tell me what a trad wife is?
Oh my goodness! You can tell I spend way too much time
not afraid to be vulnerable.
on
Vulnerable,
YouTube.
yeah.
It's this movement of putting on the rose-colored glasses like everything was perfect in the 50s. So you put on the apron and you bake pies and you put on your husband's slippers when he comes home. You know that typical like Leave It to Beaver type utopia.
That. You got that right, hun? You got that. I'm doing it. I'm a trad wife. Pretty sure. Ask him after. Yeah.
But it's a huge movement right now, and I always like. I like looking behind these things to see what the reasons that there must be a felt need behind it, and also, I used to get really upset at this until I started wondering why some men said this. So rather than getting mad at men for saying something, I again try to wonder why they're saying it. And I know some people are just saying this to be trolls, but you hear some men, even ones that I respect that aren't trolls, that go, giving women the right to vote was the biggest mistake in the world. And at first you get really mad. Okay, and then of course I do the anarchist thing and say nobody should have the right to vote, so there you go. But, which I do believe, by the way. But why do people think that? It is, again, I think because of our vulnerability, where a lot of times women are much more eager to look to the government if they don't feel like they're getting the needs met elsewhere. Even in ugly statements, sometimes there's a kernel of truth. Women do tend to vote for more government. And unless we figure out why and meet that need in another way, simply saying we want to disenfranchise half of the population, that's not going to be the answer. We as libertarians maybe need to find out a better way to meet that felt need. Do I know how we can do that? No. Sometimes I'm better at identifying problems than solutions, but you can't get to solutions until you kind of identify the problems. But some of the other women right here, I was pointing right there with the green sweater. Let's see.
I hate microphones. The quick, easy answer, emotion. I think a lot of women look to solve problems by using their emotion and not their logic, unfortunately. So that's my quick answer.
And that's an unpopular truth, but it is true. You know that whole thing, facts don't care about your feelings? I think when we discount feelings, we do make a mistake because we're not Vulcans. Feelings do, in fact, matter. Feelings are, you know, they add the spice to life. Can you imagine if we walked around as just like complete feelingless beings? That wouldn't be really a life worth having either. So I think starting to value the fact of what's the more compassionate way we can say something could be another way that we can attract women. But now let me give the dark side of that. I think sometimes then we as women, when we get in positions of power in the party, we then want all the messaging to be our way and then not let men express themselves the way that attracts men as well. So I think the balance of both is important, because I can imagine if I were a man in this audience, I'll tell you how I'd feel. Why is all the focus on women? Like, okay, why are you guys so special that we need more of you? Why don't we just need more people? And I think we as women got to realize that as well, too. You know, it's not like if all of a sudden we had 50, 60% women, we'd be all of a sudden better. I mean, in a way, that kind of denigrates the accomplishments of men as well.
I do have something to add to that, though, because you just called out a really valid knee-jerk response, which if anyone who was at Ladies of Liberty last year might remember that I invoked some of the same, like, oh, yay, women. Yeah. Because, yes, it denigrates, the same as awarding for the sake of being a woman feels actually unfulfilling. There's a really logical reason why we need more women, because who in here can't say that their commitment is greater for having their spouse involved among those who have their spouse involved, even if all they do is come to convention and don't complain when you go somewhere without them, right? You get the support of the spouse because they value the movement, because they value what the party is doing. And we need more women. We need the women who are with the men who are involved currently to value what the party is doing. We need women for the men who don't have women so they can meet a nice libertarian lady, right? And the more you attract women, the more you're gonna have husbands coming along with them. Because just like we've kind of called out a little here and there, the women are happy to stay home and take care of the kids and let the guy have his hobby. But if the women are into it too, it just affords so much more commitment and a longer commitment too, not just more effective engagement, but more lasting engagement. And if you are so autistic, you need a logical reason, that is what I offer you.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, with getting, it definitely makes sense with what Autumn's saying. But having also, going off of what Stephanie had said with women having more emotion and stuff, getting more women involved kind of brings in and also with women being kind of content, I'll use that very content being home and taking care of the kids and everything. We need to meet them at that point and find out what, going off of what Larry said too, find those conversations of what they need or want and meet them there and have those conversations, and then kind of throw the bait out there and then bring them in. Oh, so you have that opinion. Okay, cool. Here's what we have. Okay, you're interested in that. Well, come on. Let's go this way. And kind of lure them towards seeing more and more than just, I'm totally content sitting at home with the kids.
Yeah. And did we mention earlier that we were just at dinner where Larry Sharp spoke to make the connection to what Brittany just commented on, and he was speaking about meeting people where they are, because you're not going to change minds unless you can speak to them in a way that resonates. And I just wanted to make sure that for those of you watching at home, you're following along.
So it's not just this weird
Larry.
contextless. We're like, oh yeah, that joke this morning, ha ha ha, and everyone else like, what are you talking about?
Could I pose a question to the panel?
Oh yes.
No.
So
Yeah, absolutely not.
Not
The-
you, anyone else.
there's been a growing trend and theme in the LPPA, I think, towards local action and activity and getting counties involved. What are the action items and the calls to action that we can get women interested in their local communities? What are the local activities that we can do that call women to action?
Set out chocolate. Entrap them with candy and chocolate and coffee and play dates.
I think
I've got nothing.
for the local elections, the biggest thing in the last, since COVID really, is the school boards. And there's nothing more that's going to drive more women into the party than the education issues. Whatever side they are in any issue going on, I think it's the most one of the most underserved, policies or platforms for the party is how we're dealing with education, because we're so big on end the Fed. And I'm like a military historian, right? I love foreign policy. Awesome. Great. That was my master's degree. I find myself not getting along with other women a lot of the time because I'm like, I just want to talk about these wars that happened. And they're like, my mom, you know what she does? She says, you've had 30 minutes. You're done for the night. No more Civil War. And I'm like, okay, I just stop because that's the end of it.
My mom might do that to you next time we hang out.
Right, that's just it. Okay, that was your time out. But I think the education, the school boards, especially post-COVID, is such an opportunity because the local races, and we can win the school boards, right? Because it's usually choose more than one candidate. And if we're like, hey, we're here and we're talking in whatever area or community is that's important with the libertarian perspective on the school board races, we're going to bring the women in because it's about the kids, right? And then you have the family, and that's going to bring everybody in. So I think we need to get a lot better literature out on the issues at home, and not all the time, as much as and the Fed's really fun, right? We live our chants and things, but I think it's really important to have that there. So I would say the school boards. And I had one other thing to say to the other question, which was my first state convention was at Williamsport, and I remember sitting in the audience. And first of all, I was upset all weekend because there was no coffee in that entire stage area. You couldn't get one. You had to go to the hotel and ask for something from behind the desk. And I was like, who organized this? So then I was like, I really have to get involved with the conventions because my ultimate goal is an ongoing coffee bar. I mean, I'm on the credentials committee. I already put in the chat, I'm going to bring an espresso machine to national. Because priorities. But I also remember saying to people, why is this such a mess?
Purse vodka.
Yeah.
That's better than a bra.
That at Reno, if you're
Yeah.
listening, purse vodka lady, You better be at DC. That's all I can say.
You know, like, where are the priorities here? Like, how are we supposed to keep this business going on for hours? And then I remember telling people, if the guys are just going to keep on fighting, you want to know why the women are not in here? Because they're just like, I don't know, we all remember Williamsport, there's video, right? I was saying, like, why don't we just get like 10 of like the women that seem to know what's going on? We'll go get some coffees and like some cafe and we'll just finish the business and they can just do whatever else. But yeah, I mean, that is my ultimate goal. At some point, the LPPA is going to have an ongoing cappuccino bar at convention 24/7. And at DC, I already checked, it's a 24/7 cafe at the hotel.
She is into this.
Confirmed.
But
Yeah, you got to make it attractive for women. And I think, I'm not just saying like women are the only coffee drinkers. I think some of the men would agree, like, yeah, that'd be really helpful. But I do think like we just need to sort of be more appealing, you know, and it shouldn't always be like rah rah. And the Fed, that has its time and its place. But right now, like school board, wow. Like that's a huge recruiter,
Well,
and
the
we're winning
medical
that.
choice is
Medical
a big
choice, yeah.
thing. Home businesses, you know, if you're, you know, raising bees or, you know, there's all kinds of businesses that women can do and still stay home with their families that I think are a big thing. I'm kind of the odd duck here. I'm childless by choice. But I can still understand. I just mama bear everybody else, you know, rather than having any of my own. That tends to be part of it. I'm going to tell y'all another, since we are doing story time, a funny time. So now you'll get to see how difficult I can be. So I don't drive. What a lot of people don't know. I know how to. I just don't normally. So I make Wayne take me everywhere. Shut the door, Wayne. I know wherever you're at right now in Colorado, there's a door open that is driving me crazy. So shut the door, now that you know. And he probably is watching this, and he probably just spit water or whatever all over the place. So when I became a libertarian before him. Now, that's unusual. So I became a libertarian first, and he had to take me to all the meetings. So he's like, I might as well, you know. He claims he was a libertarian the whole time. No, he wasn't. He was a neocon. I don't care. I said it. Yes, I said it. So he had to take me everywhere. And he joined the party, and I was communications director of the Libertarian Party of Colorado. He wanted to spend more time with me, so he decided to get on the board of Colorado. He ended up getting on the board, and what did I do the minute he got on the board of Colorado? I resigned. That is good. And then I got involved nationally, and now he never, hardly ever sees me. That's why he watches my videos. Hi, Wayne. So, love to hear from anyone else. I mean, we could really rove into any other subjects. I mean, this was certainly how it started. I think we have such a diverse group up here from different female perspectives.
Well, I know we've got somebody raising their hand, and I'm curious if it's around the topic that I was going to suggest that we pivot to, because when you talk about somebody running for office, you're often talking about it either being a woman or someone who has a person in their life who is a woman and wants and has all the experiences of that dynamic of what happens when you're in a relationship with somebody who's subject to public scrutiny. So now, I hope I'm reading your mind, TJ. But if not, I'm planting the seed for other people who may not be interested in speaking, but definitely have interesting. That's my husband. We can ignore him.
Attacked from both
I
sides.
thought you were ignoring him on purpose, so I was just making sure.
Consider if you want to share stories, because it's a nice time to do it. TJ.
So from what I experienced when Brittany first decided to run, and especially when she decided to run for township supervisor, in the beginning of her campaign, people would be like, "Oh, you're TJ's wife," and it's funny because she lived in that township since birth, like since 3 years old. I've only lived there for 10 years, and I'm from Brooklyn, so Pennsylvanians naturally just hate New Yorkers. So, and they're like, "Oh, you're TJ's wife," and then it slowly turned into I was a nobody fly on the wall, and "Oh, you're Brittany's husband. I need my light fixed on my street. Can you get her to do that for me?"
Yeah. I have a very, very large social media presence in my township, and to the point that the residents come to me instead of the township manager. I collect all of the complaints and go to the township manager and go, here, Kyle, fix this. And I'm not even elected. I am just a candidate. So, yeah. Yes. And it did. It even from my state rep race in 2022, I was TJ's wife. I was everything, whatever he did, I mostly got blamed for. And I'll put it at blamed because, oh, your husband's the head of a militia. No, he's not. But why does that matter? I am me and he is he. So I don't care what you think about him. You need to listen to what I have as an opinion, not his, because mine is not the same as his. Sometimes it is, but usually it's not. But yeah, it did, even just this last race, it did switch from TJ's wife to now you're Brittany's husband.
And your husband had one back there.
Is this
I
thing
don't
on?
know that man. I don't know him.
I know he's homeless. I think he just
So,
wandered in.
so I have a pretty serious question. In this last few minutes, I felt the need that I need to tell everybody that I suddenly identify as a woman. Can I come sit up there? It's okay if not, but I
I would
understand.
say yes. Aside from
I just
all
wanted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would advise that we let him sit up here. Aside from all the other indicators that he is just a troublemaker. That's the only reason.
Hey, listen, no judgment here. We're libertarians. So if you want to fly your freak flag, as long as you're not going to challenge me to weightlifting, swimming, or changing in the locker room, we're cool. I probably even have a dress that might fit you. It's a Libertarian Party one, lp.org/store. Carrie Eiler, you're welcome. We do have some badass merchandise there. So you are welcome if you happen to identify as a woman. By the way, speaking of trolling in that way, TSA. Don't you just love how I pivot? So I was at the TSA in Tucson, and they tried to get me into going into the rights violating machine, and I started throwing a fit. And they knew when my plane was. They go, well, we won't be able to get a woman here to pat you down for a half an hour, and they knew my flight was less than a half an hour. I said, oh, well, I identify as a man. And they just kind of looked at me. She says, well, I'm not sure if we have a man either. I go, oh, really? I go, hold on. I identify as non-binary. Whoever you got. Just send them over.
That's actually genius. I love it.
Yeah. And then I'll tell you how I trolled them more. So I did file a complaint, actually, because they stole my gavel. They stole my gavel.
I have a story about stealing a gavel.
Oh, my God. They're like, you got a hammer in your back. I'm like, this is not hammer time. I'm a parliamentarian. But anyway, so they stole my gavel. So anyway, I escalated the complaint up. And they wanted to review the footage, I guess, to make sure I wasn't threatening anyone or anything like that. So they asked, and I knew why they asked, but I trolled them anyway. And the last question they asked after date and time, they go, what were you wearing? So I wrote them back in all caps, what do you mean, what was I wearing? Are you saying I asked for it?
Oh my God, that's genius. Oh, that's great.
And then they're like, oh, no, they're all apologetics. I'm like, dudes, I've got hot pink hair. You aren't going to miss me on the video camera. I mean, yeah, I really blend in. You're not going to be able to spot me.
Wow.
But I just laughed, all caps, like so indignant. And the apologetic email I got back was just, it was
I'm so glad it
delicious.
worked out that way for you. I apologize. I got really excited because you don't hear stories about someone stealing a gavel often. I'll tell you later. I was a very rebellious teenager.
Well, I had 2 in the bag, and they only stole one of them. This is how incompetent.
Oh, it
the
sounds like
TSA
my
is.
story. I might be able to tell you what this person's motivation was.
Now I'm really wondering, is it kinky?
No,
Oh, okay.
No, actually, no, not. No.
I wanted to hear some boom chaka wawa when it came to parliamentarian stuff. It's like she seconded my motion. I think she's into me. introduce my jacket.
Oh, where were we? Does anybody have any spontaneous stories that you want to share just because you feel like it's going to feel good to get it out? And whether it's funny or touching, I know people have been through a lot of things the last
I'm
couple
going to
of
make
years.
my Vouch joke now, though.
Do
It
it.
can't be about horses. Nothing about horses. If you know, you know. Which probably only one person in this room, but the one person that knows is
Who
like,
knows?
nay.
Is that the joke?
Oh, no, it gets worse. But anyone who does know knows.
No, I'm good. I got water.
I'm sorry?
I said horse senpai.
Yeah.
Anime girls.
Oh, boy.
For anybody who doesn't know.
No, I don't know. I feel I'm super out of the loop. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I don't want my channel to get taken
All right.
down, so we'll just leave it at that.
We're gonna have a good after party. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna tell all the stories.
So anyone else, or if you have any questions, which it might leave you guys kind of out, but you might have some comments as well. If you have any questions, LNC wise, or if you're interested in running for positions, I've held like, oh my God, don't even go to my Lpedia page. Oh my God. I do have a funny story to tell you about with that one, and I do see your question. I'll grab you in a second. But I'd love to answer any questions on how to get involved in party governance, where your talents might lie. But one morning I texted Angela, and I'm like, Angela, I had you in my dream last night. I had this weirdest dream where I was in a Zoom meeting, and it was everybody. It was actually the last LNC, which you all know my various feelings about. And all I remember waking up in the dream shrieking, "Where is Angela?" And I texted Angela, and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm having the LNC nightmares now too." It's no lie. It's been since 2016. I get them like 3 times a week. And sorry, Bill Redpath. I'm not going to say anything bad about him, but when I was super sick, I had pneumonia, if you guys don't know, or pre-pneumonia about a month ago, and that's why my voice is still weird. And I was literally having hallucinations, or like audio hallucinations. I don't know what they call those. I'm sure there's a word for them.
Auditory hallucinations.
Auditory hallucinations, I guess. And Mr. Redpath has the, even when we're on the phone and we're friends, he just calls me Madam Secretary. It's always Madam Secretary. So I was having these audio hallucinations where just for hours, all I kept hearing in Bill Redpath's voice was, Madam Secretary, Madam Secretary, Madam Secretary. I swear. Like,
Was there like a spinning black and white spiral in the background? It sounds like some real high anxiety stuff.
It was, I'm telling you, it was, now looking back on it, it's like I only have a 2-story house or I would have jumped out the window.
No.
You know, it was.
2-story would have done it. I mean.
Not with the deck that was raised.
Not enough.
I just would have had pneumonia with a broken leg, and
Okay,
that one dealt with it.
Good.
Okay, gotcha.
You said we could ask questions about the LNC, so I was curious, are you running for LNC secretary again at DC?
So in other words, let me translate. Are you asking me if I'm a masochist?
I suppose so.
Yeah, I think yes.
No, I did decide that I am rerunning.
We're happy to hear you're a masochist.
Yes. So in other words, yes, I'm a masochist. I've reconciled myself to the fact that I'm going to be happy no matter what happens. I like volunteering my parliamentary time, but I can tell you I do think I found my calling in the job of secretary. It fits the skill set that I particularly happen to have. I cut out.
Ooh, here we go. Switch it out.
So yeah, the short answer to that is yes. So I hope I win. Please vote for me. Please clap.
All right, we got another one back, so we're good.
All right, two questions. Number one for Brittany. I have the opposite problem in our township. The streetlight's too bright. Can you take care of that for me?
Of course.
She's got
Okay.
rocks.
Great.
Wrap a tarp around it. Get some really heavy.
It might not
zip
be
ties.
the result you want, but I suggest the blindfold.
Okay. So my real question for each of you is, who is your Liberty girl crush, dead or alive, that you would like to have sitting up on that panel up there with you, and why? No wrong answers, unless it's Hillary Clinton.
Definitely wrong. No, so wrong. It's so wrong.
I don't know if I have a Liberty Girl crush. I get political crushes though, and they're never on libertarians. They're always on the biggest status. I had the big. You guys are going to kill me after this one, but you guys will agree with me. I had the biggest crush on AOC. I got something for the hot Latina women. Sorry. And then I had the biggest crush on Sarah Palin for a while too, with those sexy library glasses, the librarian glasses. I got those. Yeah, go.
You want off the hook? All
Yeah,
right, let me
okay.
let you off the hook. Tulsi Gabbard. I
Oh,
mean,
no, yeah,
she's
yeah.
not like the perfect libertarian, but that's the first I was just like, no, what? No. I mean, she's cute, but no Tulsi Gabbard. As a matter of fact, I remember being really excited when my husband showed me she's shooting guns now. I mean, set it up. Let's
Admit it,
we
it's
got-
Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, I mean, she does have a great pair, you know.
Of eyebrows.
Well, wait. We got one more girl crush to answer.
I don't have it.
Is it me? It's me. It's me, right?
It can be you, Autumn.
Yeah.
I was going to answer the girl crush, actually. So, first of all, I guess we could-
Allison Graham, by the way, you gave a really great little interjection earlier, and I felt bad that we weren't able to say that's Allison Graham from Bucks County,
Okay.
right?
yeah.
I just want to give credit. Here she is again, Allison. Thank you for letting me interrupt to give you credit.
So I think I think everybody in the Libertarian Party has this crush on like the Statue of Liberty, and it's a woman the whole time anyway. So I
There
think,
you
and
go.
Karen Ann's representing really, really well. So I mean, that's like the idol. But I tend to really appreciate the women of the past, right? And there's two in particular that I just want to like shout out because we don't hear about them enough. They're long dead, as are most of my idols. But Julia Ward Howe from the 19th century, this is Civil War era, right? She wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Okay.
So we have really the most apocalyptic paean of our country's history, and she wrote it for a couple bucks, and she wrote all 5 verses. So everybody gets to sing it. We're like, wow, this is really military cool, written by a woman. The other thing is you see Lazarus at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty, and that's Emma Lazarus writes, "Give me your tired and your poor." So the messaging is female, but it resonates with everybody. So I have to say, probably, because I was thinking, like, is it the revolutionaries? I'm like, I don't know. But those two women, they gave some of the best messaging in history for America, and the messaging's remembered, and they're mostly forgotten. So I think it's a nice thing to bring up.
See, I feel so shallow. Y'all went for like the deep ones, and I was just like for the hot ones.
Oh, see, I don't know. I'm so turned off by it, dum-dum. Hot Latina or not, I just
That
can't.
lipstick, man, it just gets me.
No. Ugh.
I love that shade of
Well,
red.
that's different strokes.
You know, yeah, it makes the world go round. All right, anyone else? And I'm checking the comments. I always worry about my comments sometimes.
Yeah, I can't.
You know, gotta put on the old lady glasses.
still need to zoom to see anything.
Oh, there's just all kinds of weird stuff. Yeah, go right ahead.
Do you think women are more susceptible to feel like judged and want to control the perceptions of themselves, and that's part of it? Because like we don't exactly, as the Libertarian Party, have the best win rate, you know?
I guess it depends. I do tend to think most of us are autistic. I mean, I literally am diagnosed, but which means you tend not to even comprehend what other people think of you. So I'm not so sure on that. I guess some others would need to ask. I can tell you, again, story time, way before I was libertarian, I went to Disney World with a friend of mine, and by the end of the day, she was nearly having a nervous breakdown because she's normal and I'm not. And she was like, "You really have no sense of self-consciousness, do you?" And I'm like, "Nope, She's like, people were just staring at your antics all day, and you really didn't notice. And it's like when I got my hair dyed pink when I first went to do it, the lady was like, oh, a streak, right? I'm like, nope, the whole damn thing. And she's like, you got some big balls, don't you? I'm like, the biggest of them all. So I wonder what you all would think on that.
I mean, yeah, I think statistically, just if you consider that women are more susceptible to the things that impact us with our body image, right? Like perhaps now in the current youth, there's a shifting in the rate at which it affects women more than men. When you're talking about the adults now, we're definitely coming from I mean, if anybody disagrees, I'm open to people giving feedback, but once you get to the point where you're more self-conscious about your body, how on earth do you not think that everything else to some degree follows? And we work really hard to fortify ourselves against that, but and not everyone, obviously. But yeah, I think you might be onto something, that women are a little more shy away from associating themselves with the party that is losing. Let's be frank, right? We're still working at winning more every day, but we're coming in last in most of our measurable public efforts.
We're number one at losing.
Yeah, so you may be onto something, and that's the thing. Like it's not a thing that applies to everybody, and it's not a consistent measure across the board, but it measures in, and statistically it could be contributing. It's fair.
Yeah, I had a lot of comments when I announced that I was running again. They're like, "Oh, so you're just what are you planning to lose now?" And I went, I got 33% of the vote in my township as a libertarian, so you can go take your words and pound sand. But it did in the beginning when I first started, it definitely kind of stuck a little and was like, why am I doing this? And then 30 seconds later, I'm like, oh, that's why. Like, it didn't take long, but yeah, it definitely did in the beginning start to like be like, well, maybe they have a point. And then it's like, oh, but keep going.
Well, I can tell you, you'll laugh at this. So when I first walked into I wouldn't recommend you guys do this, by the way, into the Castle Rock Town Council. Don't, when you first walk into the government building, yell out loudly, "It smells like coercion in here." Which is what I did.
Noted.
We've got a question in the audience. Mr. Luke Enser.
Very simply, is the future female?
That's correct. That's
I like how we're all just here with our mouths open going like,
Are you R-worded?
yeah, like,
what does that mean?
you
What
want
are
to
you
know
talk-
what's funny about that? It's men that made that expression, I think, and most women.
And who wanted to get laid
Yes.
and pretend they were feminists.
Most women find that expression so fucking cringe, I can't even tell you. I think that's what we were all just sitting here, like we were all just cringing so hard. But speaking of that, with the getting laid part, I have a friend who wasn't a libertarian, and she was newly divorced, and my advice to her was just to start going to libertarian meetings.
No solid
I'm
advice.
like, you'll have the pick of the litter. I go, you're single? You're attractive? Oh my goodness. Because I had a male friend. He's in the party. He'll know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to embarrass him by saying the name. He used to go to the Green Party meetings to pick up chicks. So, so now it's the opposite. Yeah. I tell all the single ladies, you want to get a guy? You want to just have your pick of the room, just start going to the local libertarian meeting.
No, especially if you want to live a trad wife life.
Yeah, it's...
I used it in a sentence.
See, now you know. You learned something today.
Morgan Mogus.
I'm extremely hesitant to bring up this question because I know how divisive it can be among libertarians.
I'm excited.
But
oh yeah, we're like
since
totally
this is a
into
ladies'
it.
panel, the abortion question.
Ah,
discuss.
Can I take a lead on this one?
Yeah, and I'll probably have a totally different opinion than the rest of y'all.
I got this question a lot in my area, and I came to my answer of I'm neither pro-choice nor pro-life. I am pro your choice. The government shouldn't be involved in a decision between a patient and their doctor. And it resonated.
Yours?
No, so I basically took the same position, and I had a really protracted conversation with a highly respected local business owner and township leader, elected leader, where I was surprised at the success of my tactic of explaining to him that emotionally I completely understand his very strong pro-life position. However, we must deeply consider the real life and logistical implications of asking the government to take responsibility for enacting laws which require they have access to our personal medical records and scrutiny over our personal medical decisions. I am open to accepting that an abortion isn't a medical choice. However, you do understand this is the medical information barrier we're talking about, asking the government to monitor in the interest of enforcing laws that outlaw abortion. I have many emotional feelings that align with people who don't want to see free and open and hell, especially third-term abortions. But in every case, when we talk about the laws we want to enforce on our fellow citizens, we must go the next step to really understand the privacy rights that could be violated in the process of administering those regulations against our fellow citizens. And that's where you got to be calm, you got to be, and that's where I stand. And I've had surprisingly good success.
Well, I'm curious, just by raise of hands, how many people would consider themselves pro-life? Wow, quite a bit in the room. And pro-choice? You're like both, but the pro-lifers really outnumbered in this room. But that question just goes to show you, because you could have raised your hand for both.
I really could, because I can identify with the views of both sides.
Well, I have a somewhat complex point of view on it, but of course I think it's right, like all libertarians think everything they think is right. I don't think pro-life or pro-choice makes any kind of sense in a libertarian context, and maybe that's where you were coming from. To me, it's like left and right. It's just nonsensical. It's like asking what the color blue tastes like when you're dealing with a libertarian. I do believe life begins at conception. I do believe rights-bearing life begins at conception. But I also believe that one person can't be forced to sustain the life of another person. Even if it will kill them, like I could need your kidney and I will die if I don't get it. I can't force you to give it to me, even if I will die if I can't get it. However, if you are the one who forced me to need your kidney, then we're talking about a different situation. And I think that's where we start getting into problems with abortion. If you're a woman who took the birth control pill at 2 p.m. every single day, which they say to take it at the same time every day, and it's 99.99% effective, can you be said in any sense of the word to have consented to that pregnancy? And consent is everything. So even though I believe that as a fully rights-bearing human being, I don't think people can use your body without consent. However, if you were a woman who took no precautions, how are you any different than someone who shoots a gun into a building that you don't know is empty and you kill somebody? So that's where things start getting complicated, and I don't think the government's the best judge of that. So even though I am pretty strictly pro-life, I don't want the government involved, because the logical consequences of that are, why shouldn't they then enforce what you're going to eat? I mean, if you have a fully, outside of your body child and you're feeding it rat poison or whatever, giving it drugs or letting it drink, they can come arrest you for that. Do we want now the diets and activities of pregnant women being monitored by the government? Should you not be able to go on that carnival ride because it might raise your blood pressure and endanger the child? Because you have to think, if you're going to have the government treat the unborn the exact same way as they would the born, you're basically making prisoners of women. And I'm saying that as a very, very strong pro-life person who does believe in the full humanity at the moment of conception and still does not want the government involved. You know, but I'm also a religious person. I'm not a pro-lifer because I'm religious, by the way, but I'm at peace with not having the government involved because I'm religious, because I believe God will take care of everything in the end. If we think that we can right every wrong in this life, we're going to go crazy. So you have to make sure that the cure isn't worse than the disease. So while I might think abortion is absolutely wrong in some circumstances, in order to cure that quote-unquote disease, the cure would be much worse. I mean, the fact is there's domestic abuse in the home. Do we now put cameras in everyone's home so that the government can monitor that wives aren't beating up on their husbands, which happens more than people would like to think? Everyone thinks it goes one way, and it doesn't. We could probably end all domestic abuse by doing that, but the cure is worse than the disease. So the fact is there are going to be injustices in this world. And if you're not a religious person, I don't know how you deal with that. But as a religious person, I leave that to God.
No law will ever ferret away immoral acts. And you really have to consider the guaranteed cost of putting certain power into the hands of the government. And I do feel obligated as I reflect on the words I used. I didn't have success in changing this man's mind that I referred to when I said I had success with this way of explaining the position. I just, by the end of the conversation, had him clearly really considering what I said, which when you're talking about such a radical change, I felt was successful. I in case anybody actually listened to this and figured out who I was talking about, I wanted to be transparent. So thanks for letting me take a minute.
All right. And any others, but bringing up the abortion one, ooh, that was the hot topic.
Good job, good job, Morgan.
And by the way, because of that, I was opposed to deleting the abortion plank. I just want to have that on the record. It pretty much said nothing and held peace in the party for 50 years. And now you want to know what we're going to do every convention? Is argue about frickin' whether or not we're going to add the plank in again. They think getting rid of it ended that debate. No, it didn't. It's just going to get worse. That meaningless plank that said absolutely nothing, it was air, should have just stayed in there. Just felt like I had to say that. And I know, people know what caucus I belong to, and they were mostly in favor of deleting that. And I see we aren't a hive mind. No. Because I did not vote for deleting that. I threw away my tokens. Yeah.
So, as a woman, you.
Are you?
As a woman.
Are you? Do you have a confession to make?
As a woman,
we'll validate you.
Perspective,
you don't get a period, though. I'm telling you that right now. You do not
I
menstruate.
don't want one. I've seen from my daughter. I'm good.
That's starting to get really creepy. Okay, let's continue.
But women statistically are more likely to be attacked. The attacker gets to choose the place they attack you. They get to choose how they attack you. As a woman, do you think that we, as the party, need to switch the narrative of how we combat Second Amendment issues based on those talking points that Brittany probably knows exactly where I'm going with because she belongs to the organization that uses that, but basically educating, not legislating, and using that to get our point across to the people that are pro banning guns or pro bump stock like Trump. Banning bump stocks like Trump. So
is it statistically true, though, that women get attacked more than men?
Yes. Yes.
My husband just sits on his phone all the time, and he swears to me, and I've checked, it's true. He's just reading articles about guns. So I have checked. I can't believe how much the man reads about guns and gun violence, and
Because
So-
I thought it was statistically true that men are more involved in violent attacks than women are, but women fear it more than men do.
Well, is that because more of the violent attacks are perpetrated by the men? Are they counting as a victim?
Okay, because I know I've read before that men are much more likely to be the victims of violence than women. So are you basically saying that arms are the great equalizer? No, I definitely think we
Yeah.
need to do that, not just for women, but also for other groups that feel vulnerable, gay people, trans people, anyone that might feel like they might be a victim. It is the great equalizer. I love that poster that says armed gays don't get bashed,
Yeah.
you know? And whether people want to combat the statistics of whether or not those particular groups get attacked more or not, you know, that really doesn't matter. We're kind of got back to the roads, haven't we? They feel they do. And perception is reality, and a lot of times, if you feel vulnerable, if that helps you not, I think that's a definite message for us to go to. We should be preaching arming women, because that is the great equalizer right there. Because the fact is, in raw nature, nearly any man can take down any woman. I mean, isn't that what this whole athletic debate is about when you're dealing with trans people? It's the inherent superior strength of men. But the minute you put a gun into the equation, I don't care about your fast twitch muscle fibers or whatever the fuck it is that they talk about in swimming. You know, that bullet's going to take you down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This wasn't really a big gotcha question. Yes, everyone should get a gun and a free certificate to a training session.
5 minutes. Brittany?
So I know where he said I know where he's coming from with it, and it's going along the lines of bringing more education to the topic than just passing laws and
see?
stuff. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's
You know
it.
what?
It's educate, don't
This
legislate.
sweet poor man back there couldn't get the question. No, I'm sorry. I'm being a little mean, but I know he's a good guy and he can take it.
I thought he just came out as a woman. Please respect his pronouns.
They couldn't get the point across properly without their wife. That's all I was trying to say. I'm so. Get her some more water, please. She's about to finish it.
Oh, alrighty.
All right. I'm sorry. Thanks for being a good
we
sport.
do have another question there.
We do. Mr. Krawchuk. Dad's not here. Haha.
Let me start off by saying Gloria Steinem, my crush.
Gloria Steinem is your. You might as well just said Nancy
Totally
Pelosi.
unapproachable. Anyway,
It's hammer time.
we were talking about. I'm going to be running for governor again, and we were talking about how to get people fired up about stuff. Now I'm a guy. I know how to fire up some guys. You know, you can talk about guns, you can talk about cars, different things like that. What fires up a woman?
Shoes.
Purses.
You know, I was trying to do it, and the best
I'm right,
answer.
aren't I?
The best
Every
answer.
woman was nodding the minute I said that.
We need gold Ken Krawchuk sneakers.
I'll just leave.
It's a.
The
We're weaving a
closest we
basket.
come to firing up a woman is to show her that the government is betraying her. Betrayal is the thing that gets a woman really fired up. So let me ask you, what gets you really fired up, speaking as a woman?
I'm not a typical woman when that comes. Anyone who reads my Twitter can tell I get fired up every day over secession, and I don't really think that's the typical. Anyone who reads my Twitter feed knows every morning I'm like, secession today?
Oh, well then listen, you already pointed out that you get fired up over something weird. Brittany, should we agree to let our husbands tell the audience what we get fired up about? Because I honestly am kind of at a loss.
I kind of want to
There's
see
actually-
what he thinks I get
yeah,
fired
yeah,
up about.
me too. There's actually a
more.
really long secret list of the shit I don't make a big deal of. One thing.
One thing.
One thing.
The number one.
Rob, run the mic. We got two.
One
husbands.
thing. What does she get fired up about? Nothing kinky.
Well, Rob's going to him
Keep
first.
that in the bedroom.
This
We don't
is-
need that.
This is my husband, John Pangia. Let's
We
see what he
have
says.
two different interpretations of a clean kitchen and a clean bathroom.
Oh, now we're getting.
That sounds more like an admission to me.
So I can't just do two. What gets her the most mad, I honestly believe it's all the BS meetings that she has to do after working overnight for her job. I feel like she wants to like throw her phone out the car when that happens, or at somebody. Hopefully not me. True story. She put me in the hospital once after she had a baby by throwing a phone at me.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Smart.
So what gets her the most excited, which I hated at the gun show I'm a gun purist. I think guns should be black, steel, or chrome, or nickel. Tiffany blue Glocks, stainless.
No
Or
pink?
Tiffany blue Glocks or
pink.
pink guns.
Wait, these are things that anger your
No,
wife?
no, get excited, like happy,
we
excited
switched
versus
gears. I'm
pissed
sorry.
off, excited.
I lost track because I was mostly distracted by the fact that, I'm sorry, Ken, but none of this shit's going to help your campaign.
I do have.
I tried.
I
Should we
have
come
one
back?
that can help his campaign.
Thank you.
And that is more so considering when people speak to women and talk down to us and dumb it down. We are just as smart, if not smarter, than the person talking to us. So treat us as such.
Oh God, we still have more questions over here.
So it's not so much as a question, but to go off what she had said, I was an elected auditor for my township. The first meeting I walked into was with two male, older auditors. They had had experience because they had sat in those seats longer. They talked down to me because, one, I was a female, and two, because I had an L behind my name. That made me incapable of understanding, apparently, how to do math when that's what I did for my work. So I find that is a turn-off being a libertarian. First off is people think because that L's behind my name, it makes a difference on how I can understand and communicate things. And then on top of that, being a woman.
How long ago was that you got elected?
So I was 2019 to 2024.
Okay.
Or 2023. He took over my position in
Aw.
24. So
Go tag team. How did it turn out? How did you evolve those relationships?
it was still a struggle the entire 4 years.
They were just a bunch of jerks?
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice.
One was a Democrat, and he very much so stuck by this was a man's position, and a man should be doing the job.
Very
So-
democratic of him.
Yeah. So it was a struggle, and it was interesting whenever I found their mistakes, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know. We've got to double check that. Are you sure you're right?" So it was an interesting time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service.
Right, and I know we're at time, so let me try to wrap this up. While I do think we have work to do, I also think we're too hard on ourselves as a party on this particular topic. I mean, even if you look around the room, somebody had mentioned earlier, I forgot who it was, that politics isn't really what women are naturally drawn to. And considering that, there's quite a few ladies in the room. And as I said, there's quite a few women in leadership in the party. We like to talk about how terrible we are. We like to talk about how much we fight. Just go look at what's going on in the Michigan GOP, where they were actually throwing hands. Like, what a mess. Yeah, we have infighting. I see the infighting that goes on in the GOP, and it's just maybe more diffuse because they're bigger, but our infighting isn't any worse. We like to be really, really hard on ourselves, but I do think we have a lot of female involvement. I actually think a bigger issue is getting more minority involvement, to be honest with you. So I think we do have a lot to be proud of, along with the things we need to discuss and not to be quite so hard on ourselves. All right, I think any closing words from you two, and then we can head on off.
Karen Ann, thanks so much for having us. I find you to be just a delight to spend time with, and I really look up to you. And you've done a great job working the crowd here, and appreciate everybody. Thanks a lot.
And you?
Yeah, it was definitely thought provoking.
Right,
And
well.
definitely opinions.
And we had a ton of comments, so thank you.
Sorry we didn't keep up with the
Yeah,
comments, guys. I really got to go this close just to even begin to.
I know it's like so small, but they've been ripping off each other. I think here just.
I'm gonna try not to read the comments.
Yeah, y'all can check them off later. So I'm gonna do my traditional closing. So have an awesome night. Mi guapas de Libertad.